Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. So earlier today, I put out a video talking about obviously the release of tactical nuclear weapons, and I wanted to have a quick look at what are Vladimir Putin's options at this point. What is he looking to achieve? What could he do in the ongoing war that is taking place? And then again, obviously, I had used that tactical nuclear weapons release as a could you call it clickbait? Maybe, but at the same time, you can't rule out the possible use of tactical nuclear weapons within the confines of this conflict. Maybe not the actual use of tactical nuclear weapons, but the threatened use of nuclear weapons could also come into play, and that is using tactical nuclear weapons or the threat of tactical nuclear weapons within the course of war. Now, could Putin issue a release of tactical nuclear weapons? Yes, he could. And he could do that again through the use of some sort of above ground test. I mean, even an above ground test of a tactical nuclear device, someplace in northern Russia, would have ramifications. It would have economic ramifications here in the United States. I mean, we would probably see the stock market start to sell off rapidly. And then, God forbid, nuclear weapons were actually used. That would change the whole dynamic to this war. But what are his options right now? Meaning Putin. What can he do? Well, if he declares victory and says that he has quote unquote demilitarized Ukraine and begins to pull forces back from areas where he does not believe he can continue to hold. Now the question is, will the Ukrainians accept that? Will they continue on the offensive towards Crimea or some other areas, such as trying to retake Melitopol? Difficult to say at this point. Can he continue on with the war? He can. But in order to do that, he is probably, Putin, is going to have to mobilize the Russian Federation. Right now he's trying to fight this war with one hand tied behind his back. I get that mobilizing 2 million Russians and giving them all AK-47s is probably not something that would be very successful for Russian forces, but there's more to mobilization than just that. Obviously, there would be additional monetary resources going into the Russian military-industrial complex. You would see the ability of Russia to expand its military-industrial complex and raise the force levels within the country. It just wouldn't be a matter of handing an AK-47 to all Russian military males. A lot more goes into this than just that. But you are seeing the really kind of the complete mobilization taking place inside of Ukraine. Additionally, you continue to see the West directly supporting Ukraine as well. So when I talk about Russia fighting it with one arm behind its back, that's what it is doing. So what options do the Russians have at this point? What are Putin's options? Well, he can order a withdrawal, a limited withdrawal, or a total withdrawal, but that would come with a price, a tremendous price. And would his regime survive after what would be ultimately probably perceived as a defeat, which it would be? Step two, he orders a mobilization and is able to better fight the continuing war. How far would that go? Well, unknown at this point. We'd probably see an uptick in direct Western intervention to assist the Ukrainians. So there doesn't appear to be an answer to this right now, and I think ultimately it's going to have to play itself out within the military realm. I don't believe either side is looking for a political solution right now, or can't really come to the table and have that sort of discussion, because both sides want something that the other side is just not willing to give at this point. The Russians can't give up territory that they've taken. There's reasons behind what has been done by the Russians, and at the same time, the Ukrainians aren't going to acquiesce either, given some of the battlefield victories that they've experienced near Kharkov. So, what happens next? Now, oftentimes you will hear about this Russian strategy to escalate in order to de-escalate, which kind of circles me back to the deployment of those tactical nuclear weapon systems. It would not be outside the realm of possibility for something to happen that could be perceived as a NATO or U.S. intervention in the ongoing war. Could it be something that happens in the Baltics? Could it be something that happens near the Polish border that causes some sort of direct conflict between Russian forces and NATO forces? Then you could see that possible tactical nuclear release by Russian forces. I mean, we're looking at everything that's possible within this war. No one sees a nuclear war coming. It just doesn't happen that way. Now, it's possible that, and I'm talking about the strategic use of nuclear weapons. You would see rapid escalation, and I don't believe that the West would play that game. I don't believe the West is ready to risk a nuclear exchange, meaning a strategic nuclear exchange after a tactical nuclear exchange. So if the Russians utilized tactical nuclear weapons and escalated this thing dramatically, would the West be willing to radically escalate as well? I don't know, and I don't believe the West would be willing to do that. Thus, you would see a lot of pressure by the West on the Ukrainians to immediately try and ratchet this thing down and maybe acquiesce to some of Putin's demands. I don't know. I'm just throwing these ideas out there on what could happen, because we don't know what's going to happen at this point. At this point, neither side is willing to give an inch in what's happening on the ground. And Putin really has ultimately two decisions: escalate and continue the war, or de-escalate and back out, which ultimately would mean a defeat. And based on what Putin has done in the past, if you look at what happened in Chechnya and what happened in 2008 in Georgia and what's happening now in Ukraine, that's not what he has done in the past. So he has normally escalated in the past. And again, that escalation concept is to eventually de-escalate. In that escalation, whatever that is, could it be an enhanced ballistic missile and cruise missile campaign against Ukrainian targets? Could it mean a general mobilization? Could it mean creating some sort of a direct outbreak of hostilities between NATO and Russia? Again, that would impact the economic situation of the West. It would impact the economic situation here in the United States. And we're heading into winter in terms of Europe needing energy. So when I talk about the use of tactical nuclear weapons, I get that some see it as clickbait, but ultimately it's something that's very, very much real and could occur. And I know when people see it and hear about it, they immediately get very, very nervous. And that's what it's designed to do. And it would be a strategy, could be a tactic that Russia could use ultimately to look for a ending of the war. They're going to have to do something because what's happening right now isn't working for the Russians. It's not going well for them. So they're going to have to do something. So what that something is, it's either A, pull out, accept defeat. Then what happens to Putin? What happens to Putin's inner circle? Difficult to say. Probably not something good is going to come from it. Do they mobilize? Possibly. That could happen. But ultimately, that would also prove that that Putin made a mistake in terms of calling this a special operation, not what it is. It's a war. Or rapid escalation, meaning Russia against NATO, create a lot of anxiety in the West through the threatened use or limited use of tactical nuclear weapons. And that's so again, when I say tactical nuclear weapons, you can do above ground tests. There are things that can be done to ratchet up tension in the West, and thus would cause the West to ratchet up its pressure on Ukraine to try and end this thing or to accept something different than ultimately the retaking of the Crimean Peninsula or retaking Mariupol or Melitopol or continuing offensive operations in the east. And very, very precarious situation right now, and very, very serious situation as well. Probably much more serious than people really understand. I'm watching these Ukrainian rah-rah channels, talk about destroying the Russian military in the east and then toppling Putin's regime. Look, that is going to lead to something that many in the Ukraine may at some point regret. It may lead to something that many in the West ultimately regrets in terms of some serious, serious economic hardships that could take place if the Russians really get agitated and decide to escalate, seriously escalate. But that's kind of where we are right now. I mean, there's two options ultimately for the Russians: back out, accept defeat, and then what happens after that? Probably not good. Mobilize or dramatically escalate, and then see what happens and see if the West is willing to ratchet up tensions, which I don't think they will be. They may, hard to say, but the status quo, what's happening right now, at least for the Russians, is not something that they're going to be able to do. They're going to have to do something, and what is going to be that something? Well, we're going to have to see, and ultimately we will. That's all I have. Thanks for joining us again. Have a good day.